introduce you to Jessica Rathke and also to Elizabeth Gomez. They're going to be presenting on the subject of transforming LSP through sales innovation, 2 case studies. Jessica is a sales strategist, consultant, coach, and trainer for the language service industry and has helped LSPs in 47 plus countries improve sales performance. She is currently principal at London and Austin based localization sales and marketing. Jessica has 26 years of localization sales, management and marketing experience for leading language service providers. Jessica holds an MBA and has Bachelor's of Arts degrees in Foreign Affairs and German from Miami University in Ohio, USA. She also pursued postgraduate studies in German at the University of Salzburg. She's currently working on the next level of coaching certification with the International Coach Academy. Elizabeth, who is co-presenting, has more than 25 years of diversified management experience in sales, marketing, and operations within the publication and technical translation industry. She is currently Vice President of Sales and Marketing for ACCU Solution Services and ACCU AI, a publication management and technical translation service provider, where she oversees strategic planning, sales, and marketing strategy, as well as execution. Elizabeth has gained her executive business experience by serving in sales and management positions at various language service providers. She currently serves as the president of Women in Defense Michigan Chapter, a nonprofit professional network and development organization who contributes to U.S. national defense and security. Elizabeth and also Jessica, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Elizabeth, okay.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Elizabeth, if you could forward the slide deck.
Sure.
Please. We've already kind of been through that. That's just our pictures. Okay, I'm going to jump right in here. Thank you, David, for that introduction. Elizabeth and I have quite a lot to share with you today, and I'm going to leave much of the floor to her because she is done some amazing sales efforts in her work. And one of the things that I would like to just start out with is describing the elite salesperson, or what I believe are the traits and things that people like Elizabeth are doing today to be really great salespeople and bring in new business and interesting business. So those of you who know me, you all have heard some of this before, but it really comes down to asking really good questions. So being curious about your customers and not just about selling translation, but finding out what their business issues are. And you might find out some really surprising things. One of the things that you'll hear about today is that Elizabeth listened very carefully and found some unmet needs that actually in the end, she and her company could solve. And it wasn't necessarily translation in the beginning. Finding hidden customers. So finding the people who may not be involved in the day-to-day, but the people who are up a couple of levels and have business issues that our services can touch, but it may not either be apparent to them or occur to them or even to us that we could solve them. So finding those people, and especially higher level people, to really understand the business, learning continuously about your customer's business, learning continuously about the trends in their business, and how our services link to that, because I do believe that is changing quite a bit. And in the case of Elizabeth in particular, leveraging AI technology and harnessing that data. So AI, of course, is everywhere. We're talking about it a lot. There are applications for sales. You'll hear a slightly different application of it today from Elizabeth. So if you would like to forward, Elizabeth, to the next slide, please. So I'd like to set the stage because Elizabeth came to me wanting sales training And she had been in sales and marketing, of course, but was really wanting to grow the company and grow the services that her company was offering. And so decided to upgrade or uptick her sales. So we developed personas for her industry, at least a couple together, and then she went nuts doing that by herself afterwards, but really figuring out who the people are that she would like to be talking to and what their business issues might be, so that she can have a more intelligent conversation with them. From that, also developing a really compelling value proposition once she was understanding the customer. I think a key one too is handling resistance. You know, I already have a vendor, I'm not interested in what you're talking about, that sort of thing. Handling that. I think probably, and maybe Elizabeth, you can touch on this when we turn things over to you, but as I recall, the most important thing that came out of the training was really asking insightful questions and continuing to ask questions and really honing in on what's going on in the customer's business, both personally for them and also in the company in general. And then managing the opportunity once she's uncovered it, especially those that are maybe slightly outside the norm, which you'll hear about. We did periodic top-ups and coaching, so she might come to me with a specific situation and we kind of chew through it and figure out the right strategy moving forward. And then I'd check in with her occasionally, just saying, hey, how's it going? What's working well for you? What's not working so well? And continuing to give that advice. And I added virtual selling. So she and I most recently have had some conversations about this, since it is all too prevalent today. We're not making too many face-to-face visits these days, and how to best handle those circumstances. So I want to hand things over to Elizabeth, because I think you're going to find her 2 case studies exceptionally interesting. So Elizabeth, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the mentorship and the coaching that you've given me over the years. We've had a close relationship, and I couldn't have done what I did without you, so thanks.
Oh, thank you.
I'll get right into this because we don't have a lot of time, and there are 2 case studies. But this was for a heavy truck manufacturer, and there was a very good opportunity out there that was going to be upcoming. And so I decided that I was going to work my hardest to try to connect and make sure that we at least got an opportunity, right? So what I did was I researched the client's industry events that they were participating in, and I attended every event that they were going to be exhibiting at, or every event that their team would be at, so that I could make myself known as to who I was. And then I looked for an opportunity to sit with them in a B2B environment, right? What I will say on this is things have changed. So you might have to search a little bit harder. You might have to do some deep dives into their LinkedIn profiles to see where they're going to be and maybe where you might get that opportunity to talk to them. And during that B2B meeting, I shared historical specific industry information. So what I wanted to be able to do was create some rapport right off the bat. Yes, I do understand your industry and I have experience in it. And here is what I've done in the past. To be able to share with them that, yes, I do understand what you're creating, right? What is their product, right? So I wanted to make sure that I got a seat at the table, and the way that I did that was to make sure that I gave them some historical experience, which was extremely important. Then once I got an opportunity for a meeting with the exact individuals that were going to be handling this program, we analyzed a lot of their current content and language requirements. And that's asking some of those curious questions so that you can not only understand what the language requirement is, but go beyond that and understand, okay, how are they writing? What does their CMS system look like? Who are their authors? Where are they at, right? So that you can better understand the like pipeline they're going through and the processes, right? And also taking a look at their current technologies and making sure that you can apply your conversation to their technologies. And through those curious questions, I was able to understand that there was a couple of areas they were struggling and they had no experience. So what I did was I researched and I provided them documentation and got some information from partnerships that we had to provide them data that they needed, right? So truly I was helping them to do their job. But that was the key, right? I was creating that trust and rapport. So by providing them information for the things that they might be missing, I was showing them that they could trust me. So as we started to work together, I found out that there were more struggles that were there and that they were struggling to meet some of their clients' demands. So we quickly positioned ourselves with some partners to effectively provide some alternatives and solutions outside of our own capabilities, which was key to making this partnership a success with them. Excuse me. As the vendor partner role continued to evolve, we learned more about the customer's end client, and we were actually, the client trusted us enough to bring us to their client's facility. And I got to know their customer even better and understand what their customer was looking for. So now what you're doing is you're opening that up to saying, okay, what are my customers' needs? And that makes you even more valuable. And at this time, actually, we're quite valued and we're in on all the conversations as they move forward through this program. So with reviewing all of that, what we were able to do is create additional services and added value, which came, we used to be ACCU, now we're ACCU Solution Services. So what we developed were solutions around what they needed, but it opened the door for us to have different revenue streams. So this increased our company's revenue upwards of $1 million outside of our core services. And what it did was it offered us some teaming opportunities, which brought us an additional potential of $2 million in revenue. So you can see how this has triggered so much opportunity for us. And it's all through just really listening to the customer and trying to help them. And it's actually through a very genuine relationship that this occurred. So I'll quickly move on to case study 2. I think I'm still doing pretty good on timing so that if anyone has any questions. The second case study was a little bit different because of the fact that this came through a web-based inquiry. And as I received this web-based inquiry, it was very plain Jane, just a few words. And I thought, okay, we really need to do our homework before we contact them so that we could really, because as you understand, when you get a web-based inquiry, you're probably one of 10, right? So you want to really think about that. And so what we did is we researched the organization prior to our response, and we reviewed all of their recent updates that they have internationally. And we took the initial conversation and we dedicated it to the company's recent global achievements and objectives that we were able to find. So it didn't start with, hey, we're a translation company and this is what we do. What it started with is, wow, I see that you've done this, this, and this. How is that working for you? And then we started talking about what they're doing and what their global strategy is about. So that kind of helped us a lot in identifying some global content objectives and strategic questions that we came up with to be able to have more of an open-ended discussion. We discussed the buyer's experience in global content marketing because with the questions, we found out that they already had a translation vendor. So we needed to put forth a lot of good effort in order to, really kind of take this over. So what we did is we confirmed their budget and timing requirements and then reviewed the previous global content programs they had and the outcomes. We offered a lot of insights, solutions, and new ideas to help them solve their problem and better serve their customers. And what we did was when they gave us the budget, we quickly realized that, okay, this budget is not going to be enough to give them everything they're looking at. So what we decided was, okay, let's provide some alternatives to their wish list. So that's where a lot of these solutions and new ideas came into play so that we could say, okay, we won't be able to provide all of this for you, but at that dollar figure. However, what we can do is provide you these alternative solutions so that you can get close to what you're looking at. And then as our trusted advisor status developed, the client utilized some of our non-traditional services, which was really very interesting, that we were able to work with them. And then we were able to add additional value. And what ended up happening was that this was one part of their company, but then they brought in all of their different divisions to our organization, and then they actually brought in their entire marketing team. So we were able to provide them enough value that they would trust us to bring all their other divisions as well as provide additional services. So through all of the questioning and all of the hard work up front, we were able to increase the client revenue by 60%. And with that, we were able to actually secure new clients via some referrals that they've actually sent. So truly, this has turned out to be a great experience, but it all started with that curious questioning and understanding what their objectives were and what the objectives of their clients were.
Wow, you went fast.
Did I? I tried to make sure that I could fit it all in.
Well, I have a couple of questions after I go through this slide, actually. There are one or two things I'd like to prompt out of you. So in a summary, or, you know, one of the things that Elizabeth mentioned was she and her company became a trusted advisor. Now, I know this is a term that's bandied about, and it's actually, you know, kind of like the word synergy. It's much overused in today's world. But I think what Elizabeth did epitomizes that trusted advisor. She went way above and beyond, you know, selling translation services. She went in with learning what her client's industry was all about. And I do have a question around that when I get finished with this.
Sure.
And not just, you know, their company, doing the research beforehand. So really understanding who these companies were. Now, at first, and I do know this, and, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but, you know, at first, this is a big ask. I mean, to learn, I don't know, the defense industry, which is one of your core markets. I mean, that's not a small industry to understand. And there are a lot of different aspects of it. So, you know, initially it can feel a little bit daunting, but I think this is also one of those things about specialization, because you can have those kinds of in-depth conversations that you can't have if you're simply selling, well, we're really good at translating, you know, defense content, and we know all the terminology, and we deliver really good quality, and we deliver it on time. I mean, that isn't enough today, and everybody who knows me has heard me say that a million times. But I think having it presented in, you know, Elizabeth's way, in terms of what she did, what happened, and what the benefits to her company were, make it much more clear. I think going where your clients go, I think that is crucial. Again, not an easy thing. It's not like coming to GALA where we know everybody and we all do kind of the same thing. So it's really penetrating that, which I think actually I'll ask the question now. So what prompted you, Elizabeth, to join Women in Defense? Because you had mentioned that as a way, well, at least it was mentioned in your bio. So was that a crucial way to gain credibility and visibility?
Well, I'll give you a little background in the fact that I came from heavy industrial machinery and manufacturing. And when I first came to ACCU Solution Services, the pricing model was not going to work here in the States. So I went to the CEO and I said, you know, this isn't going to work. And he said, okay. He said, then we're going to change, and we're going to take our model and we're going to specialize in defense. We already do it in another market, or another country. And so we'll just do the same in the US. And I said, well, I don't know anything about the defense industry. And what he told me was, You're pretty smart. You figure it out. And so I had to do that, right? Like if I wanted to make money, I had to figure this out, right? So my way of doing it was researching, okay, how am I going to find out? How am I going to create relationships in this industry? And so it took me a bit. I have to say, this is not an easy task. I attended Women in Defense events 1 year straight, every single month, and unfortunately it took me that long to get someone to really talk to me and befriend me and help me out. So it took 1 year of going to every single event they had. And so like I said, but you know what, it's been critical. And I do believe that those that want to get a niche, and that's the way to do it, because now people start to trust you, and you're going to create the rapport because you understand their industry. And that's key and critical to your success in being a trusted advisor.
Yeah, thanks for that. So you've kind of answered bullet point 3. It enabled you to develop relationships and learn the success factors. I think the other thing really quickly that I would add to that is it probably, well, I know it put you in touch with people you never ever would have met otherwise. If you were trying to sell translation, you were not going to be talking to some of these executives that were at these Women in Defense events. Is that correct?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
so,
catapulted it.
Yeah, exactly. So being actively involved, sometimes that takes time, being genuine. And of course, you've heard curious questioning quite a lot from Elizabeth, but I think that's key, is being curious, so that, once we understand what they're doing, what their needs are, what their problems are in all sorts of different senses, then we're in the best position to offer our services, because we can match it to that. So learning, partnering with your customer, as Elizabeth said, and that enables you to find more in the gaps where you can add more value. And I think this is true, adding more value than your competitor or the incumbent. And that enabled her to win pretty significant revenue from these two customers. David, I see you're there. You've been flashing me, so I'll stop talking.
And David, I'll stop sharing, so I'll let you go to that.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth and Jessica, for this presentation. We have some questions from the audience, so I will read them to you. The first question is from Martha. She's asking, I'm curious about your experience in terms of invested time. How long did it take to sign a contract with those two accounts?
Okay, this really isn't very fair because of the fact that typically in the defense industry, it takes quite a long time. So I'll share that the first case study is a defense case study, and I was actually able to pull that off in 1 year's time, which is usually it takes about a year to 18 months just to get an RFP, and I was able to get the RFP and start the contract within 1 year, and it's been going on for several years.
Okay, here's another question from Catherine. This is to Elizabeth. Can you talk a bit more about the nature of the non-traditional service offerings that you came up for each of these two clients?
Well, what I could tell you is that one of them is publication management. There's a lot of different spectrums of that, and that would take several hours of conversation. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. And then the other one has several different components into creative content. It has to do with SEO. It has to do with some actual traditional marketing and kind of unique animation and AR and VR programs.
Mm-hmm. Can you maybe expand a little bit more on your marketing strategy?
So the marketing piece has a little bit to do with videos and demonstrations via the video, with more of a mixed reality type environment. So, and then also a little bit of e-learning as well.
Okay. the other question that I have for you is, what is the biggest challenge besides the conversion time when it comes to sales?
Oh, what is the biggest challenge? Right now, I would have to say COVID-19. The fact that I cannot travel, it is extremely difficult. I've had to learn a lot about LinkedIn, and I've had to learn about how to do virtual events, and I've really had to, that has taken up most of my time, is learning how to do things out of the norm and really thinking out of the box. I just did a huge networking session for the Michigan Defense Expo for National Defense Industrial Association with 110 people, and putting them into rooms and then bringing them back and showcasing some generals. And yeah, so I would say technology. Yes, and COVID. Oh my.
Yeah.
So,
the next question is similar. Is how COVID have affected sales?
I can't meet physically with anyone, and I do a lot of. I think I do a ton of relationship building, and that is how I do much of my business. And so for me, it is very critical to meet people and see them and understand who they are as an individual. So my philosophy is if I meet you, I want to learn about you first. And if I make a friendship, fantastic. If I make a sale, that's even better. So I think for me, the fact that I can't travel is very difficult and meet people face to face.
Yeah, I'd like to add one little comment to that too. It is just so much more challenging to do in an online environment, but I think I would encourage people to still participate in end customer events, because everybody, I mean, we're all in the same boat. You can have the same, I mean, some of the same conversations that I've been having in the networking room with everybody else in GALA. It's the same sort of thing, it's a conversation piece all by itself. And if you can't think of anything else to talk about, it's a great icebreaker to at least start those conversations. But it is possible to develop. I think everybody's starving for that connection. So to your point, Elizabeth, if you focus on the relationship and the sale a little bit later, at least, I think that really will help you, because I think we're just all craving that connection.
Right. And I have to say, I think a critical component to this is really taking the time to think out of the box and being innovative. Like I put together something a couple weeks ago, maybe it was just a week ago, and I hosted a virtual networking event, and I brought in a mixologist, and we made cocktails, and we learned about tequila and how to make different drinks with tequila. So, I mean, you really can think out of the box and do things that are different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have one more minute, and we have one quick question.
Okay.
For Elizabeth, how did meeting your customers influence or change the kinds of service you provide or the way you provide them?
Oh, well, the way we provide it and an influence on our partnerships, that catapulted things, because they encouraged us to provide different services. They encouraged us to offer some value in other ways. So they were great. And it's, again, it's because we went out of our way to listen and to help them get through a certain segment of publications. And so they just encouraged us and said, you know what, you've got a great start at this, and you really, if you just take it to the next level by maybe doing this, this, and this. And so they were helpful and encouraging.
Well, thank you again, Jessica and Elizabeth, for your presentation. And we will go to our next presenter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is is Elizabeth Riley, and she will be talking about linguistics quality. It is a marriage, not an affair. Elizabeth has worked in a variety of roles since starting her localization career in 2004 as a linguistic QA manager. Since then, she has held a range of positions on both the client and vendor sides, including localization engineer, account manager, and sales manager. Since September 2019, Elizabeth has been working in the VistaTech sales team as Director of Solutions Architecture, where she can put to use her wide-ranging experience helping create enterprise localization programs for new global customers. Elizabeth, the audience is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot, David. I appreciate the introduction. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen, in fact. Actually, let me get that here. Okay, all right. Thanks for the introduction, David. Okay, so first, thanks everybody for joining the webinar. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to speak here today, especially at GALA. What I want to start off with is just a quick poll. I'm curious to find out what drew you all to attend this webinar. So start off and get you guys participating a little bit. It's got a little questionnaire here. So can we do the poll? Do we have the question available? If not, I can just read these and you can sort of. Okay. Do we have that?
No, I'm afraid I do not see these. So
Okay.
do you want to speak them out and have people use the chat to respond?
Yeah, it's just a quickie. So, okay, I was just curious why people are attending the webinar. So the options are, you're interested in language quality in general. You're always having quality issues with your LSP or your vendor, and you thought this webinar might help you understand why that is.